We're going to begin recording, and Birgit, I'm going to go ahead and open the event, and look forward to your talk. So welcome everyone, welcome to today's event. It's the European Union and Youth Employment, and this event is hosted by the Colorado European Union Center of Excellence at the University of Colorado in Boulder. I'm Felicia Naranjo Martinez, the Executive Director of this center, also known as CEUCE. Just a little bit about the center. Our aim is to foster links between the United States Mountain West and the European Union by promoting mutual understanding and engagement among students, educators, researchers, policymakers, business and legal practitioners, and the general public. Today we're really excited to welcome you, Birgit Dijber, former member of the European Parliament. Before we begin, just a couple of housekeeping items. We welcome your questions. Please use the chat function to submit your questions, and submit them to me if you would, Felicia Martinez. Another note is that a recording of today's presentation will appear on the Colorado European Union Center of Excellence website under the banner of the University of Colorado Boulder. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Birgit Dijber. She's held a number of influential positions, including member of the European Parliament, Director of European Office of the Rosa Luxemburg Foundation in Brussels as coordinator of their transatlantic and international projects, and as an expert for social urban development. She's an author and publisher of a number of books and articles on the European and international issues, including The New Urban Agenda, Prospects, Challenges. Welcome, Birgit. Thank you for joining us today. We are so looking forward to this. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, we're ready.
Okay. Thank you very much for inviting me. I feel honored to be hosted by your center. And as you asked me, I prepared some information about youth employment and youth policy on the European level. First of all, we have to know that education and most of social policies are national competencies. So the European level is only additional levels. Nevertheless, and we have to know that let's say the economic situation in the European Union differs widely from very wealthy states to, let's say, not so wealthy states. So there are, if we look to the situation of youth, we have generally, we have a wonderful statistical office of the European Union, that's Eurostat. If whenever you want to know something about the structure, statistics of European Union, have a look to Eurostat. It's a good source. And they give us the figures on youth unemployment, what is rather important, because as you may know that there are countries like Greece, Spain, Italy, and the not so wealthy states as Bulgaria, Romania, they have a lot of problems with youth employment. This means the economy they have weak economies, or they have economies largely depending on seasonal touristic issues. That mean that young people find jobs only seasonally, part-time, without a good, let's say, what we in Europe like, good social security. So this is a problem. And if we look to the newest figures, we see that in Spain, about 40% in Greece 39, in Italy 30, and even in Belgium 18% of young people up to to the age of 25 are unemployed. What is the problem with these figures is that they only count until the age of 25. But there is another, let's say, barrier for young people, that is when they are coming from the university. And the university, they finish very often later than 25. So it gives an impression, but it's not the whole figure. And to respond, and then just another, some other figures I would like to bring to you are the percentage of university education. The European Union tries to coordinate university or to cooperate on the university level. And so they try to improve university education of young people. And up to now, we have, by example, in very small countries like Lithuania and Cyprus, we have over 50% of young people passing university education. In Italy, it's about 27. In Germany, it's 34 for the moment. And what is the European Union providing too is, at least in the last financial period, 7 years period, they provided in their scientific framework, they prevented, they had a program for young researchers. And this was a very famous program where young researchers, just at the end of their studies, could cooperate, universities over Europe in different countries could cooperate and work on research studies. This is a very good thing, and I hope they will continue it from on 21, the new financial 7 years period that is just beginning again. What is important from the European level, and about 4.5 million young people in Europe already participated, is the scholarship Erasmus. Erasmus is a program that was founded in 1987, and since then is giving students the chance to to pass months or half a year in another European or one of the countries participating to the Erasmus program. And the Erasmus program is actually about 200,000 students a year are participating in this scholarship. And in my experience, Erasmus is the main instrument for young people in Europe to give them, let's say, a kind of positive picture of the European Union. And so I think it will be continued because the European Union has not the best record in our countries, and this is a very good thing. Erasmus is not financing very big courses. They up to 450 euros a month. But what they give you too is free access to the university where you go to. And as we have in Europe too, as I think it's in America the case too, a more and more privatized situation of universities, where they ask a lot of fees from their students if they want to make their studies there. And this means that Erasmus students don't have to pay these kind of university fees. And this is already something. Perhaps you heard that with Brexit, the British government decided to stop and not to continue the Erasmus program. This is really a pity, because it not only that Britain always was a very famous place for European students to pass their Erasmus there. It was for British students too very, very important that they had the opportunity without paying much money to pass some studies in other European countries. So this is the situation of Erasmus. And these are the, let's say, the most famous and well-known programs. There are other, as the unemployment of youth is such a existential problem. There are other specific programs within the social and employment policies. Now I have to introduce to you the main social instrument the European Union has, and this is since 1957, the European Social Fund. With the European Social Fund, Europe is promoting employment and education and professional education in European countries. And this is the most important social instrument Europe has. And within the European Social Fund, we have, by example, still ongoing in 2021 and 22, the Youth Employment Initiative, and where they support apprenticeships, traineeships, job placements, further education leading to a qualification. And already this kind of structure of support shows something that is really striking. And that is that young people very often only find apprenticeships, traineeships, timely limited placements, and so on. And there is another problem that is, I'm as a German know best our German system, and if you look to the youth unemployment scheme, you see that Germany only in those category up to the age of 25 only has about 6% unemployed young people. It is not that in Germany we have no problems, but in Germany we have this kind of, aside from the higher education and university education, we have this tradition of the alternate professional education. This means young people, when they leave the school, they look for a kind of professional education in a craft, industrial, and so on, whatever they want. And they make a contract with an enterprise, and they are educated in the enterprise, and they go only to a professional school once or twice a week. And at the end of the 3 years, 2 years of 3 years or 4 years vocational training, they get a diploma. And these diplomas are well recognized in Germany because every enterprise knows this young guy, this young woman has passed the 3 years good practical and at the same time professional education. And very often the young people passing their diplomas in these fields, they get a direct contract, working contract in the enterprise where they learned. So there is a, let's say, this is very traditional, goes back hundreds of years, but it's something, if we look to other countries, where vocational training is largely concentrated in schools, professional schools, which have no direct connection with enterprises. This is in some way a barrier that young people, when they pass the professional school, they are completely alone and have their diploma, but there is no connection between the different. And so this is something where I think the difficulties, many difficulties are. And on the other hand, I think it's really important that especially with the experience we have now with the incredible pandemic, that the traditional social security system we have in Europe is stabilized and not further privatized or reduced, because this is, if you look, by example, to the, I'm living in Italy, and the Italian economy is, let's say, is weaker than the German one, and the state is not as rich as Germany is as a state, but even in Italy, they try to secure this the social situation of people in this situation and not to leave them completely out. And I think this is a tradition for Americans hard to understand, as from the other side, for us Europeans, it's hard to understand that so many people in America in this situation of the pandemic have to stand at public organizations and ask for food and so on. So this is what I wanted to say to introduce. Now, I hope you have a lot of questions.
Thank you, Brigitte. Very interesting information about the Erasmus Plus. That's something we can really, we're really familiar with, so we can identify with that. Our center is actually part of the Erasmus Plus, is supported under that program. And so that allows us to bring speakers like you and many other speakers across the board to our audiences. And that's really a plus for us. It allows us to learn more about subjects like you're talking about unemployment in the European Union. And it's interesting to hear a little bit how that works within the European Union. Can you point to any particular programs that you're aware of in the EU that are operating under Erasmus Plus?
No, Erasmus Plus now is new.
Oh, that's new. Okay, all right.
Yeah, Erasmus Plus. I know Erasmus, and by example, I'm sometimes invited. I was in Romania, invited in a university with the campus program, and and for the students in these universities, it's so important that they have this access to Europe. And then I made an experience in Kiev, in Ukraine. And there too, Erasmus was so famous for the students because they were so like, they wanted to know all about Europe, and it was not, and I think it is really, and there is another smaller program for universities. I don't know if you are participating in that. That's the Jean Monnet program.
Right.
The Jean Monnet program gives universities the opportunity to engage in European, let's say, research and thinking. And often the universities participating in Erasmus participate in Jean Monnet too. And the third thing I would propose or draw your attention on is the science framework, the framework on scientific cooperation in Europe. If there are interesting parts that perhaps you can participate too in research projects, direct research projects, because there is a lot, I think there is a lot to research on Europe. How does it work and how can it be, let's say, there are so many problems we have in Europe, you know, it's not so easy. And so it's very good if there are many young people and intellectuals and students and whatever from outside who take attention and to take attention of this of our Europe, because Europe is not only Europe, and it lives from all the influences and the cooperation throughout the world. That's it.
Beautiful. We have a question from our audience, and it says, what do you think are some of the solutions going forward to deal with the UK leaving the EU in terms of youth employment?
Well, we have to do it now on ourselves, and it's we are missing UK strongly because it never was a very easy partner, UK, because but it was a very important and existential partner. And so I think for the European, for us, the Europeans, it's bitter, but we make it because Europe is great enough to make it. And so the young people who want to pass their Erasmus in an English-speaking country, they now go to Malta or to Ireland, and so it's no more London, but London always was very expensive. So, but it's no more Sheffield or Leicester or something wonderful British university, but it's now this you can do, but we will miss it all the time. That's very clear, because UK is part of Europe. It's and we look at it and think, okay, yeah, no.
Right. Now, as far as the solutions, though, what you're saying is that the UK really provided a place for people to go study in English. Do other universities then across the EU have classes in English, and would that be a possible solution?
Yes. Most of the university which provide European studies, do it in English. So if you are doing it in Constance in Germany, or in Brussels in Belgium, or in perhaps not in France, but even in the Europe, in France too.
Yeah.
and so you can, European studies in English are usual. It's not something that you have really search. So that's
okay. So that's still an option for people or students looking to study.
If USA is entering strongly into Erasmus, I'm very sure that there would be a lot of young people from Europe to come to American universities to make their studies there.
Well, it's a little different here. Our programs are a little different as far as exchange, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But Brigitte, I'd like to bring another question forward. One of our audience members says, hello, and thanks for the interesting talk. The question is youth unemployment the kind of issue that you feel the EU should be given greater power to tackle at a more central level? Or would you be concerned that this is transferring too much power to the central EU level away from the national democracies?
I think that the, let's say, reality you have to tackle where it happens. And that's in the regions, and that's in the countries. And but I think up to now, all those programs, they as the youth initiative they made under 5 years ago, it's not so fruitful, because they give the money to the regional organizations and authorities. And my experience, long experience with the European Social Fund, is that the national authorities, the regional authorities, they decide what to do with the money. Mm-hmm. And as the European money never is 100% financial contribution, but always complementary financial contributions, the let's say the national and regional authorities are not so keen really to take courageous and innovative steps. Mm-hmm. They want to follow what they ever followed, and so on. That's the problem we have. So there was a period, and I was fighting for it when I was a parliamentarian, mm-hmm. When the European Commission had within the European Social Fund a certain percentage for innovative, specific innovative programs, which were directly managed in Brussels. Mm-hmm. And this was the time when I remember after the change in Poland or Romania and the former socialistic states, they didn't want it, before they came into the European Union, they didn't want it to do anything anymore for women. And it was the only small program by the European Commission that provided projects where women where women were promoted. And so I think this could, but in the end, with 27 members and with all the difficulties, I'm very assured that they tell you, oh, it's too complicated if we have to check the balance sheets of a 300,000 euro project in Brussels. Let's do it in the national. So that's I understand But on the other hand, you don't move if you are not courageous in this field. So that's my experience.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good point. Good point. So another question that comes is, how can Americans access youth employment programs in the European Union? For example, with research programs, is it some sort of application or is it a possibility? Do you know of any instruments that allow for American youth to join any sort of EU employment programs?
No. If Americans, if they are residents in Europe, they have access to it. But if they are not residents, so from America, there should be a new kind of, I heard about that the new administration and Europe, they want to discuss a new plan, plan for democracy together. So why not include the cooperation and the exchange between youth from Europe and America and vice versa? This could be an idea, one of the ideas, no?
Right, it would be an interesting idea to Ashton. I'm going to say that you may want to consider contacting the Centers of Excellence, the EU Centers of Excellence in the United States, and get more information on that if you're interested. We do have several grants that are specifically tailored to help American students who are interested in internships, who are interested in research in the EU and those sorts of things. So I invite you to do that. Okay, so we have another question then. Is there any way that the UK can re-enter into the Erasmus program after this Brexit agreement?
I think they could, but I'm not very sure that they would, because I don't know. Now they are out. They could, for sure they could. I think if they would accept that the European students come to UK and the UK student, but I think the actual political politicians are not interested that UK students come to Europe, because they want them to go, I think, in other countries, but not to Europe. And so it's not so clear. But if ever, I think if UK ever would like to re-enter Europe, this would be, you know, a country who is asking to participate, to be part of Europe. They take at least 10 years. It takes at least 10 years for them to narrow their and so I'm not so sure. It could be perhaps that Scotland.
Yeah,
we
right.
don't know.
Okay, so before we began this talk, we were talking a little bit, Birgit, about how you managed, what brought you to the Parliament as a member of the Parliament, and I think that's a real interesting story. Would you mind sharing that with our audience?
Okay, I was in the 80s working at the University of Berlin, creating first feminist research projects, and then as a researcher, and then the first ecological research projects. And I was from West Berlin. And in '89, just before the breaking of the wall, there were elections for the European Parliament. And from West Berlin, nobody could participate directly in European or national West German elections, because West Berlin had this allied international, still allied status. And so the West Berlin Parliament had some seats guaranteed for these parliaments, and there in those times came up the so-called green movements with parliamentarian branches, and the alternative list in Berlin, they didn't realize they had access to a seat for the European Parliament. And when they realized it was rather late, and then some of them who knew me from the Berlin scene was we were all in all together, and they asked me if I would like to take this seat. And so I decided to go to the European Parliament, and that's my experience there. And when I entered in June '89, there were about 12 member states. When I left it in '94, there were 15. And in '89, in November, as you remember, there was a little break of the wall, and all changed. So, but it was a very interesting time for me, because the European Parliament in those times was not as important and powerful as it is today. Mm-hmm. And just to remind you, the European Parliament had its first direct election in 1979. Before, it was the delegation of national parliaments. Mm-hmm. And there was no, and in '79, it started with very courageous and perhaps internationally known politicians. Even Willy Brandt was once member of the European Parliament. Mm-hmm. to fight to bring this parliament to life. And it started with in '86 with the project of the common market. What is now let's say the heart of the European Union is the common market, free market for goods, capital, services, and people. And this was the basic. Then it continued with the Maastricht Treaty in '92, where they decided what we as Greens didn't realize in those times, where they decided on the common currency, on the euro. Mm-hmm. It was decided in the Maastricht Treaty. Yeah? So that was an ongoing process and the parliament from time to time until the Lisbon Treaty got more power. And today it's really a co-decision-making body of the European Union. And the European Union is not as we have it in national parliaments. We have a directly elected parliament, which is a co-decision body and has power. And we have the European Commission, what is in a kind of government, but it is a mixture between government and administration without power. And then we have the council. This is the representation of the governments. And this is mostly they are in conflict, but in the end they find solutions. And what for me was one of the most impressive experiences in the European Union is that European democracy means compromise. That's very clear, because even if you are in your political family, it's composed by members from the south, from the north, from the east, from the west. And there are sometimes so different traditions by example. I remember the right for abortion for women. It was completely not possible for Southern Green members to accept it because they were too much rooted in Catholic traditions and so on. So even in your own political family, you have so many contradictions that you always have to find compromises. And this is something I think that is not the case if you look to traditions in national democracies. But this is really something everybody you are asking who has the experience of making politics on the European level will tell you that compromise is something you can't deny. It's simply you have to follow. And sometimes it's a compromise where you say, ooh, and sometimes you say, oh, I got something, I got a point. So that's it.
Well, I think we're all impressed by the EU's ability to do just that, to compromise, to actually get anything done when you have so many countries with so many different cultures, perspectives, agendas, and so on and so forth. And there's a lot to be done there. Brigitte, we really appreciate your talk today on youth employment, and then the talk that we've just had, and how your experience in the Parliament has come through the years. It's been very interesting. We sure appreciate your coming forward today. I don't see any other questions, and so for the moment, then I'm just going to say thank you so much to our former member of the European Parliament, Brigitte Daiber, for today's talk, the European Union and youth employment. Our thanks for the support of our sister centers across the nation under the banner of the Jean Monnet Centers of Excellence. And today's event has been hosted by the Colorado European Union Center of Excellence at the University of Colorado Boulder. Thank you for joining us today, and we hope you'll join us for our next virtual event on February 23rd with former MEP Robert Evans, who will be speaking on refocusing EU tourism post-Brexit and COVID-19. So this concludes our event for today, and remember that a recording of today's presentation will appear on our website, the Colorado European Union Center of Excellence, under the banner of the University of Colorado Boulder. We look forward to your participation in our future events, and thank you, and have a safe and healthy day. Thank you so much, Brigitte.
Thank you so much inviting me, and good luck to you, and have a safe and good day too. Thank you. Bye.
Bye all.